It takes a while.
It's okay. We got started. Just don't click this.
Where's this?
No, all the old ones, in case she wanted to open that one. That's scary. No. No, in case you just needed to pull them out or whatever. Yeah.
Take the check to it. Takes a while.
Six 6:30. Call the order. I stand at the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Happy New Year, everybody. Go to the consent agenda. There are 3 items: 5A, the minutes; 6A, the appointment of the international program coordinator; and 7B, special education. Does anybody want any of those items taken off? If not, is there a motion then to approve the consent agenda? Yes. Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Jim. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Say no. Abstaining. Motion carries. 5-4-0 against 2 absentees. All right. We do have a work session set aside to discuss the communication survey and how we're going to move ahead with that. Quite sure how to begin with that discussion. I guess the one thing would be to focus on why we did this, and one of the main reasons we did it was to try to find people to participate on committees and the board. So that would be one goal in terms of how can we use this survey to help us accomplish that.
Can you click on the third one? That has the,
Yes,
one? Yeah, thanks.
Would you mind just restating like how this got going? It's been a while. We
Yeah.
started this over the summer.
Right.
Yeah. 'Cause-
So the survey was created to help meet our board objectives of communication, which have been an objective for the past several years for the board. And so we were looking at the strategic plan and suggestions from the strategic plan as far as communication. And there was a pretty strong, it kept being repeated that we should get feedback from people outside of the direct school community. So this survey was created to try to help figure out how we're going to get that feedback, because it's a great idea, but we hadn't been successful in any of the other attempts we had with it. So it was distributed and very well received.
I remember that it was distributed at open house,
open house,
at parent conferences,
yes,
but there were also other distributions at some public functions outside of the school district,
Right,
right? Do you,
right.
do you remember what those were?
The Business Association, Rotary, Wilmington Town Meeting, Lake Placid Town Meeting. I don't know, I
Village.
never, I never know the wording of the village and
Lions Club, is that one?
yeah, Lions Club, Friends. And also, was it with the Center for the Arts or?
He really didn't know what to do with it.
But there were some surveys back from that, so he must, so that was in the comments, so. The nice part about it is most of them were filled out, online through SurveyMonkey, which was really appreciated. There were quite a few, manual entries, but, the bulk of the feedback that was really, wordy was done online, which is nice, because I didn't need to type it, or Karen too.
Do you remember how many total responses there were?
Yeah, do you have the number? It was almost 200.
Well, it says 206 right here.
Oh,
I'm
went
sorry.
over the 200. There we go.
206.
Perfect.
And I'm sorry, if you wouldn't mind,
No.
could you just sort of give us an overview what those three documents are? I know
Oh,
I've
sure.
looked at them, but just kind
So
of,
this is the third one in
structure our
there, and this
conversation.
is just the general questions. And so we have all of this data, and it's now no longer just with SurveyMonkey, it's now the district's data, all of it. SurveyMonkey's great about being able to get the data in a multiple ways so that we can use it. And these graphs are just done by SurveyMonkey. We could have done them differently, but they seem to be just fine. So I didn't change them, but if we're gonna be using this data for other reasons, maybe in the spring for something, if we wanna do a pie chart or whatever, there are other options that we can use the same data and easily convert it, which is just really nice and simple. And
so this document is the
This is-
overview of the 1 through 5 questions.
Right, and
One
so-
through 9. One through-
Yeah.
I'm sorry, question
Yeah.
1 through 9, but with the,
Right,
these
but
are
it's-
not the long answers.
right, the
Comments.
fill-ins, right,
No, those are question 4 and question 9,
right.
but the comments were individually done.
Yeah. So if you go back to the number 3 one, that's all I know to call it, sorry.
Okay.
But I think these questions, this is the basic, so again, the bulk of the people, are parents. And one of the comments from somebody was that they didn't like that they could only choose one thing. They wanted to choose more than one. But it was specifically done that they couldn't choose more than one because this actually gave us better feedback, because our taxpayer thing would have been all the parents are taxpayers plus. So this lets us know that we actually got feedback from taxpayers in addition to our parents, and or our teachers and staff. So I think that was really, I know it was frustrating and it's sometimes hard to figure out who you are with those choices because you fit into multiple, but it was one choice specifically so that we would have a little better understanding of the information. Again, parents are the bulk of it, and we still didn't reach a lot of the community members, but the ones that we did seem to have very positive things to say. So that's that one. And then if you can go to the second one, it gives us how the survey, and this question was created to just try to see how we're reaching the people the best. So a lot were filled out by the paper form. And people asked for mailings and asked for paper in the survey, which was interesting. And then we read a lot of the surveys through Facebook, which was good information to know, and we probably should post information or updates, which is suggested on Facebook. And then the newsletter was the bulk of how people did it.
When Rick and I attended a workshop, a communications workshop in Nisbet, not this year, but last year, they said, the people that ran it said, the number one way to reach people still is snail mail.
Yeah.
The regular paper mail.
Yeah. I know, I think we would have reached more people if we mailed this out. I don't know if we would have gotten it back, and I wouldn't have wanted to enter it all.
Right.
So that was the advantage of the computer link, is not having to manually enter the data.
Well, and how many times you get a survey from the hospital and you're like, it's too many pages.
Yeah.
Then I have to mail it back.
What I found interesting was on this question, how did you get the survey, so to speak? Facebook was first, but then, sorry for jumping forward.
No, that's
but
okay,
Question 5 is indicate your preference, and Facebook was third.
Right,
So,
right, which,
right.
yeah, and the preference, it was strong about the newsletters.
Newsletter, right.
A lot of people had a lot of comments about the newsletters, so,
I was upset over the website.
right.
Very,
And it was pretty easy to find on the website, but it wasn't accessed through there.
Right.
Which, again, is helpful information for us to have.
because that correlates with question 5.
Yeah, right. So it was nice that the feedback said that it's important for us to get information. Very important was the strong winner, and is this important, which was a reasonable thing to ask. And then it has the longer answers. Overall, the satisfaction was high, which is really nice. Overall, the entries were very positive. And then the question said, Karen, you can go to, like, 4 is not there, and 5 we talked about. Yeah, you can go right down. So then it talks about this is good to be on the committees. The only reason that this was here, because, all of the committees are equally important, and we need to get people for all of them. It was sort of a backdoor way to get the names of the committees out to the people that were taking the time to fill out the survey. And the good news is they all think shared decision, which is where we need the most number of people, is highly important. So, I think we'll be able to get back to them about that.
And we have names.
We have emails, we have a lot of emails. So there are, I think there are like 100 emails that were provided, and they seem to be real. There is a way to set up the question, but I couldn't figure out how to do it, and if I had known, I'm going to do it again with our IT guy, Joe. If I'd known how I didn't want to bother Joe with the Survey Monkey when it was being created, but if I'd known he was Survey Monkey friendly, I would have had him help me with that question, because there's a way to make that question when they enter their email to verify that it's a real email.
Right.
But I couldn't figure out how to set that up, but I think they'll copy and paste, they seem to be reasonable. Good. Yeah, so it's mostly now the general feedback, the comments that I was hoping that we could talk about, to be able to send something back to the people, to everybody that provided an email. One, to get them in an email bank, but to send something back to them, letting them know that the result, that we got over 200 responses, and that we went over the feedback, and thanking them for their feedback. And then through this, maybe pulling out some of the feedback to try to, in some of the cases with the feedback, it's stuff they were suggesting for us to do things that we've already done. And I think that's important to point out, to say thank you for the feedback. And these are some things that were noted that we've done over the past few years. So here, like having the good of the cause at the beginning of the meeting, having meetings in Wilmington, varying the times of the meetings because we've moved them up so that they don't run too late, you know. So I think providing the feedback on those things to acknowledge that they gave us that feedback, but they're actually things we've taken action on. And also the comment with the shared decision-making, the strategic plan, that, you know, the person who had filled it out felt like it had been dropped and we're using it constantly. Right. So there would be an opportunity to give the feedback that we're using it at every meeting and tying goals to it.
And I even think that the comments about using forums, why aren't we doing forums? Well, we do forums.
Right.
We have done forums.
Right.
Not been very well attended, but we have provided them.
Right. And so I think if we can do just a few of those and just to say in a positive way, like these are great ideas and here are some that we have implemented over the past few years and it came from the strategic plan. And then maybe to pull out a couple new ones to say it's something that we'll consider or that we're going to try. Would be good to get back to all these people, plus to ask them, you know, about running for board and also to ask them about being on committees. And then we could also post that on, you know, whatever we come up with. Maybe even make it not too long, but whatever we come up with, we can post it on Facebook, and we can put it in the newsletter, maybe as a link, or put it as a full page, or the website, you know, just to get like we thank you for the feedback, and this is what we're doing with it.
Yeah, and like classic news.
Right.
We did that with the with the survey, the exit survey, a year and a half ago. A year before last.
Mm-hmm.
And because there just seemed to be a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so we answered them that way. And we got a lot of positive feedback about doing that. So I think it would be the same idea.
And there are a lot of, I mean, I don't think we can answer all of them, but I think there's some that are kind of general themes that are, that could be addressed.
Kind of went through, some of them are very similar. Board members or subcommittees with input in the decision making on certain topics and situations. You know, again, maybe just reinforce that we do have committees and that we are looking for people to serve on them. That's been kind of a concern of ours. And then the open forums. And there were a lot of those about small group committees.
And interesting, I'm trying to find what the wording is they used, but I was wondering if we should use their wording. They talked about it, I highlighted it, focus groups.
Yeah.
So maybe that's wording that the shared committee, shared decision-making committee, instead of having subcommittees, could have focus groups, because there were several people that like to use that wording. So maybe they'd be more interested in joining a focus group than a committee. I don't know. They won't join committees. Try something new.
Yeah, the thing that when we had the focus groups for the strategic plan, we remember, maybe you sat on, we had a board committee that really worked out a kind of a formula for how we can make sure that we have all groups or various groups in the community represented, so we didn't just get all one voice.
Right.
So that's something that the shared decision-making committee can work on. How can we make sure, open it to the public, but at the same time, make sure that we're not just getting one voice.
Right. So I think that using that term, and that's something that we could tell them that we, are gonna use from this, is the focus groups. Short term, maybe throw that in to help them, but, the other thing I saw repeated quite often was, representatives. They want us to seek representatives from other groups, like a representative from the business association, and the different committees, and I thought that might be wording, and not necessarily just for the,
It's
shared
number
decision making.
41 here. That you're talking about.
Yeah,
Where it says
recruit resident business leaders to form a community advisory board. This was tried in the past, but the board dismissed their advice and questions. The board dismissed their input. Many very knowledgeable individuals, but it seems that the board isn't running a school. I don't know, is that tied to the, was that tied to the, all I could think of, is that tied to the focus groups for the strategic plan?
I don't know. And I do know that there were a lot of committees formed prior to this administration.
Right.
That were created, and there were a lot of people working hard, and then that information wasn't taken in.
So it's left over.
But it was more than just from that 41, and I heard it when I went to the Lions Club, too, that they were talking about asking, to ask for a representative. So if there's an area that we're looking into, then we may just contact friends, like happened with the safety plan, that we need a representative. And it doesn't necessarily need to be an officer of that organization. It just needs for them to send us someone that they think would give us good, objective feedback.
Yep. 21 just says advisory board from the community.
So I think that was a really, I know that made, when I was reading that, I think a couple might have been the manual, so I was typing, I thought, oh, that's good, that's kind of good feedback. So.
So do you want me to go through and write those responses and then send out to you all and see if there's more that need to be added or that?
Well, and I can give you this that's highlighted, because I did, the other thing that came out of this, which I think we, should probably address and or put it on to address, is the newsletter at the elementary school to see if that's something we need to do like through the budget, because right now it was a lot of people got back that that's how they want to get their information, but that newsletter is not done by the district right now. It's done by a volunteer. So if this is the form, and again, just for conversation and or looking at budget or how we can make it work, but if this is a form of communication that parents rely on, then we should try to find a way through the district to provide it. Not rely on, and not, the person's doing a wonderful job, but if they get called away or they're not able to do it, we should have, that came up a couple times, and I think that's something that we should try to look at.
The other thing that came through here is that the people liked the survey. They liked the survey, yeah.
Yeah, more like these.
Yeah.
That surprised me.
Yeah.
And Jeff's not even here to know that.
Right.
So that's,
Well, he read this. He
he told me he liked the survey.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was surprised by that. Specifically that, and I think the key is SurveyMonkey, because if they give you the feedback, like you send it in, it's all computer. It's spooky, but anyway, they'll rate your questions and tell you if it's something people will do, and if they're direct enough.
One of the ideas that I liked was having a table manned by the board at the open houses.
Yes, I saw that.
I don't know if that's acceptable
we've done it.
I think that would be even though, as the person put, most people will probably walk right by, at least it's there, and
That,
an informational table, just,
and
you know.
when are the next teacher conferences? When do those come out? Like February, March, April?
No, we don't have any
But they're not formal.
formal conference days set up.
Okay.
Oh, they
April
don't
set aside
have
for
anything?
informal ones, right? Yeah.
Well, maybe we could do it for some other event, with the, not like a carnival, but if there's something like concert or something, if there's any, yeah, maybe the musical, that we could have the, again, the information feedback, back from the survey and a table set up. And, you know, we could have the information about running for school board. I think I handed it out at the last school musical. We had a one-page flyer that I gave out with the
I think we did too,
brochures.
yeah.
Yeah, but maybe we could have a table there. And or if they're doing a function at the elementary school. But think about doing that in the spring and just have an information table.
The only precaution, I guess, is that one might see that as you running for office in a captured environment, but
Yeah, so I can do it.
or somebody who's not up.
Yeah.
I'm just
No,
reaching,
that's what
but
I'm, no, but I mean, that is true. Like, you wouldn't want the person
who are
running,
Right.
running, if there's somebody who's up to redo it, that would just be aware of that and not have that person soliciting for votes. Right, no, we've been called out on stuff, so that's good to do, to know. And if they do we could also do it with the auction, if they're doing that again. Cabin fever dinner.
Sure.
That's done at the elementary school.
And we have the calendar set up, and so you could see, you know, we have a
Functions.
number of school-wide events, and you kind of
Yeah.
look through and see what dates work better, and,
Yeah,
you know, where it would fit.
yeah. Yeah, we could ask, did the people that go to that cabin fever and they're trying to spend money on the auctions, say they're not even looking for money, they just want their time.
So Patty, would you do that? Would you look at the calendar and kind of target some time, some
Yeah.
places where we could go and maybe even come up with, this is the information we should have available, not do the information, but
Yeah.
here's what we should have available. And then we can use this, we'll have obviously the survey response, where we
Right.
have that, and information about the board election, and then if there's anything else, and then,
Right,
I can work, if you want, I'll work on responding to some of these things that you do, and they're suggesting that we do, and we're already doing, and,
right,
or even,
yeah, and I don't know.
clearing
we
up
can-
some misconceptions, like the one about the boards, why did the board send out a letter, or send out an email to the staff
Right,
about the school board, the writing candidate,
Yeah.
and we can do that.
right. Yeah, and I think if we can approach it from a point of view of, that we want the feedback and we appreciate the feedback, and that, you know, in some situations, maybe we can say something like, in some of the feedback, we see that we have not been very good about communicating changes we've made over the past few years. 'Cause really, it's been like this for quite a while. And so here are some of the changes, and getting it out there that people can come and speak without having to sit through the whole meeting.
Right.
Because that was always a big deterrent for people to speak.
And we do have the meeting set up. Somebody said, you know, have the informational reports, have reports to the board before you get into the business. Well, we do that.
Right.
You know, so that does happen at the beginning. They can come and listen and then leave
Right, and
whenever they want. Yeah.
I think, you know, probably what we're seeing are some people that got fairly burnt out on their participation during the time when people came to board meetings, and maybe this is a baby step to get them back in, so this would be an olive branch back. The one thing that is really important to me is when we send out the mass email, that we blind CC it, because that was part of this, that I said we won't share their emails, so I don't want, you know, someone else who filled it out to get 200 emails or 100 emails
Right.
that they could use. So, and it doesn't, can you do a group blind one?
Yeah.
You know how tech savvy I am. I think that would be really important.
Yeah.
And we can include, again, we could include just well, I guess it could just have the attachment of this, the third one, that shows the bar graph to people to let them know. And that's great that it shows the number at the top. That's awesome. Appreciate that. So.
All of this information is public right now
Right.
by virtue of being on board docs where we're looking at it. So anybody who wanted to access it could. I don't know how many will, but they
Right.
could.
And that's something to get back to people as board docs. Oh, and the transparency, they just said the word transparency, and I think that's really important to let them know that, and they repeated that they can't get out to the meetings. Well, now you don't even have to.
Well, I guess that's the other thing is that
you can
we
watch
have
it.
all kinds of
Right.
access that people probably aren't accessing.
And I don't know that they're aware of it.
Yeah.
So maybe we can say, the meetings are recorded and you can access them through the website. If you want to know more about this, just contact us.
So all you have to do, I just did it just because we're having this conversation, all you have to do is go to lpcsd.org and look in the upper right-hand corner, there's a link that says, live stream. It takes you to the YouTube station. The one on the upper left-hand corner says live, you click on it, and you're watching the meeting live.
Yeah. Yeah.
10-second delay.
And it
That's
works really well through the board docs too. It has the meetings,
Right, if you wanted to watch it the next day.
agenda, the minutes, and the video, and it's working consistently.
Yeah.
Which I think now it'll make us feel better about having people go there, that we have the consistency of it. And I think the Wilmington ones are too, so.
So we have down that so far we've come up with, we'll write a comment article to respond to some of their comments. We'll attach the graphs, we'll set up a schedule of when we can have board presence at some of the activities with information tables. The only other thing is some of the people who signed their emails request to be or express an interest in being on a specific committee?
There was no way to link that.
Okay.
So that's the thing, is that maybe the feedback is one, and then if it's easy to put them in a bulk one, then separately, because if we send them too much information, then that might shut them down. But send them the feedback, and then maybe follow up with, here are the committee, if you have an interest, this is the areas that we need, and then they could get back that, yes, I'm interested in being on a committee, or yes, I'm interested in information for running for school board. I think committee and school board could be on the same email. But I think if we put that separate from the feedback, because I don't want to scare anybody off from going over the feedback thinking that if they open this up, they're going to be on a committee.
Right. Gotcha.
I don't know how paranoid you are about opening emails, but
I'm very, very paranoid. Bad experience.
the other thing is with oh no, I guess that would be the other thing to consider is we'll see how this is received as far as people being interested in the school board, running for school board, but putting that out, we're not supposed to, recruit certain groups of people. But when the tax bills go out, if there was, I don't know if we can put in information, just the generic information on if you're interested in running for school board. So it'd be another year out, but it's a time when
There is a
an
mailing.
envelope is going out to every single taxpayer, and that's who can run. So that would really be having our district opening it up or encouraging it from everybody. So,
The only thing with that, not everybody gets that tax bill. Mine goes to the bank,
oh, yeah,
and the bank is paying,
right,
so,
you're right. There's a lot of people that's gonna happen to, because of that escrow, right? Is that, yeah,
yeah, it's all set up in the escrow account, so.
yeah. Well, well, we'll see what the feedback is on this, but maybe we just do a mailing.
At some point, we might want to consider that, just do
Just
it.
do it to
Yeah.
everybody, and just put it out there. So, the one, number 131,
That's
is they
section four.
suggested that we do incentives for being involved.
Yes, I like that. I bake every week, every time.
So,
I was looking for you to pay my tax bill.
right,
Oh, okay.
right.
You personally?
No.
Yeah, I just thought that was, that's a great idea. Let's do it.
You can tell them. Karen bakes for us.
I
The
think
school board sends us certificates.
that has, the yellow seems to be like one theme and the pink's another.
Okay.
And it's not a lot. It just has my weird chicken scratch that we've dealt with before, so if that something doesn't make sense, just
Okay, thanks.
you'll see that I think it's funny that we should offer incentives. Isn't coming out
I'll comment on that we do.
isn't coming out on January 2nd in the cold just incentive enough? It's just awesome. So, all right.
Thank you, Patty,
Sure.
for doing all that. Good, well, with that, let's move on. We'll skip for the good of the cause unless somebody on the board has something they want to say. We'll go down to the superintendent's report.
All right. We are back from our break today. So I'll start by talking about how we ended on Friday before the break, and then just mention a few things to look forward to. We ended on Friday before the break with a senior dinner over at the middle and high school. But before that, we had a graduate panel. We had a number of graduates return to talk to our students. And then many stayed to speak with those of us who were able to be there. So 21 graduates met as a group with me, Dana Wood, the principal, Connie Handmaker, the high school counselor, Mary and Dan, and Rick. And am I missing anybody else? No, it was the one, yes. And experiences in school here, and give us feedback on how their school experiences benefited them. I'll just give you a quick summary. The graduates spoke highly of many of their experiences at Lake Placid High School, including a number of things. Here's a list: athletics, the opportunities to participate in extracurriculars as opposed to not having the opportunities for their classmates in college at larger schools. The life lessons they learned in specific classes like AP US History, the connections they made by being a part of this small school community. They talked about the benefits of their teachers, their caring teachers, key teachers who knew them, who were good teachers for them. They talked about the benefits of AP classes and bridge classes, and specifically mentioned small AP classes, how that's benefited them. They talked about staff here who care. They specifically talked about the benefits of scholarship opportunities and Mrs. Handmaker's support in making that accessible to them, not just while they're in high school, but even now that they're out of high school. They talked about a number of examples came out. One of them was engineering. Students are now in college studying science and engineering, talked about the benefits of things they did in school, like in creative tech, they made a longboard, like a big skateboard. But how that kind of experience really helped them apply principles and put it in practice in ways that they can now see the connections between what they're studying and what they did then. Some talked about the benefits of a computer graphics class as a foundation for their college art class. We had 2 art majors who said the computer graphics class was really relevant to them. And we had students talk about Model OAS class. I think every year we have our students talk about Model OAS class, come back and talk about the benefits of that. But one specifically said the benefit was a context for learning to speak and debate, not necessarily just the content of what they studied or what they talked about, but the fact of having to go out there and interact with others in this kind of setting. They talked about the benefits of their economics class and how that allowed them to make connections with the real world. And then they talked about their computer classes, including, and some of this was a bit of a surprise for us. Some people said they really gained from their keyboarding class that they took way back in, 8th grade, 9th grade. Microsoft Office class, because that's where they learned how to use Excel. And then a few students talked about their 7th grade industrial tech class and how they learned to do 3D imaging design, CAD, but not 2D, 3D. I forget the name of the software, but how that actually carried through into their engineering classes while they're in college. So there were a lot of things they were able to pull out and point to and say this was good. And it was a long conversation, and we eventually had to move them on because we really also wanted to hear from them about any suggestions they have for what things that we could do here or ways that we could change to benefit them. And they mentioned some things here too. They talked about computer science class. They talked about the benefits of coding. We happen to have, and sometimes just who shows up at the panel, we happen to have a lot of science majors. And so the science majors were talking a lot about the benefits of coding. They said if we could ever pull together an AP computer science class or a coding class, some of them didn't know that we have a coding class because they had missed out on that. We had graduates from 2 and 3 years ago who were there. So some of them weren't here just from last year. Our art majors talked about improving the design aspect of our art class. They said tends to be about what you're producing and all the different mediums. But they talked about the benefits now at their level of the design aspect before you actually go about doing the art work itself, the designing aspect of it. They talked about avoiding allowing the calculator to become a crutch for them in their math and science classes. They talked about extending college preparation activities into younger years. They talked about things like LinkedIn and ways to help them prepare for careers. They suggested that, and some of the suggestions they made, they said, we don't really know that you could do this in high school, but this is what we would benefit from. So some of them said we would really benefit from less of a emphasis on grades. That there's too many grades, and that they go off to college, and then there's only a few grades that really matter. And they said that was a big gap for them to cross. They talked about they appreciated in college that they now have to learn sometimes through failure and accountability. And that was a powerful statement from some of the students. And I said, if there was any way that in high school, we could be allowed to fail and we could be held accountable in a way that would, help prepare them for that reality. What else? They talked about the concept of more choice and free will in school. The more of that, the more invested they feel like they'll be, and that they are now as they get older. Some of them talked about the Family and Consumer Science program and how that had benefited them when they were younger, and they felt like they're missing that, or that we're missing that. They talked about sewing, they talked about cooking, they talked about ways of applying things to their real lives. The suggestion was made for allowing for greater creativity and for recognizing that sometimes our classes could be less about the content itself and more about providing a context for learning higher concepts. And so we had some really thoughtful, smart, capable people who were willing to give us feedback, both positive and suggestions. And they did it in a wonderful way. It was really, I don't know how you guys felt. I felt like it was a really great conversation. And I think the one thing I think that we could certainly be sure of is that we can be proud of our graduates. We had 21 graduates there, and I would tell you that I was proud to know that these were students who had gone through late classes in high school.
They were amazing. I mean, they were well-spoken, thoughtful responses, but positive responses. They had these suggestions, but then one kind of summed up. Everybody said, I wouldn't trade my high school experience for anything. So.
And some students, were making comments that we've heard before, things about, well, now I have more time in my day. I need to learn how to manage my time. The college schedule only has me taking 1, 2, or 3 classes a day with a lot of gaps in it. And that was something I wasn't prepared for. If there was any way in high school to do that, and another student would say, I don't think there's any way in high school to help us get there, except to just continually remind us of these things and help us build in skills so that when we get there, we could do it. So there was a lot, they were talking about it themselves too. They're often going back and forth about, providing some feedback for each other, but also, recognizing where maybe the school could step in and do something differently, and where maybe it's not really about the school doing things differently. It's really just about growing up and changing their experiences in life. Anything to add, Dan or Rick or Mary?
No, I was gonna say the time management one, you heard that quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
For future maybe, because there was a lot of good feedback, would it be possible to have, like a department head from the different subjects be able to also attend that so they could hear?
We've had, of course, that in the past, because we've been doing this for a while. We've had people come when they could, but they've always told us is they have classes.
Yeah, it's
some of them do, but some of them have been able to come. We could probably do a better job of encouraging or finding ways to support them finding time to get in there. Yeah, I agree. I think that having teachers there is.
it would be just, good for them to hear too. I mean, because there was a lot of positive comments.
This group spent 3 hours. They came in at 8 o'clock and met with the juniors and seniors, and then came in and spoke with us. And they were in no hurry
No rush to leave.
which was really nice.
Rick, anything you want to add to it, or anything that
No.
stood out for you?
My first time, and I'm very analytical, very positive, and as you said, very proud that they're representing my class.
All right, so that was one thing I wanted to highlight for us. I think that feedback is really valuable for us. I know we've made use of it, not just at the board level, but at the school level and at the teacher level for many years. And we've, I think, shown the willingness to change and grow and adapt as we move forward. Other things, we have some upcoming school events and activities. We're back in action, and we're now sort of back in the normal phase of school, because the holidays do sort of throw us off with some of the celebrations. But we're certainly getting the ground running. Students and teachers return to classes today, and we're looking ahead at the end of the semester, which will mean report cards, and in some cases with middle and high school students, class changes at the end of the month. Also, there'll be Regents exams. It's only for a small percentage of our high school students who will be taking Regents exams at the end of January. We also, of course, have athletic contests in basketball, hockey, and skiing. One of those or more every day this week and most of next week. So there's rarely a day that goes by where there aren't contests going on. Next Wednesday, January 11th, is the board, Clinton, Essex, Warren, Washington School Boards Association event at the West Side Ballroom. That's just a reminder, because we talked about that last time. I think Patty, Mary, and I were planning to go. I don't know if anybody else had in. John, are you going to?
I think I can.
Yep.
Great.
She's got one.
Great. So that's a week from tomorrow.
Just to let you know,
Just to let you know.
you're going.
Monday, of course, January 15th, there's already no school then for Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. And then that next day is our next board meeting, the 16th, so that's 2 weeks away. And then finally, I wanted to just do a quick shout out to our support staff. This is a really challenging time of year. It's busy because of things like the holidays. It's emotional, and then we have the weather. And that puts a great strain on our support staff, but boy, do they come through for us. Between the numerous events and the celebrations surrounding the holidays, the harsh winter weather, people like our secretaries, our food service workers, our custodians, our bus drivers, and our mechanics, they really rise to the occasion. And just, brief examples, because I could keep on going, but, from, Patty Mayberry spearheading the senior dinner, and taking that on by asking people to, make pies and, putting together the turkeys, with alumni, to, people like Bill or Dave or Randy or Ronnie or Jeff doing the plowing and the shoveling and the sanding that comes day to day, sometimes early in the morning, sometimes on weekends, but they're always there. And then to guys like Bobby and Clarence, who spent New Year's Day thawing frozen pipes in Millen High School, figuring out why the pipe froze, repairing an opening into the building, and making sure that we were ready to open on time today. These people give their heart and soul to our district and to our facilities and to our students every day, and I don't think we can thank them enough. So just a big thank you to every one of our wonderful staff members who does so much for this school district. And that's everything.
Thank you. Information for the board. A couple things there. One is the Capital Conference is coming up February 11th and 12th. This is a time where it's an advocacy session where you go and you take workshops and you find out what's happening in terms of the budget process and what the legislation is looking at in terms of new laws, regulations. I've gone in the past, I'm not able to go this time, but Rick is indicating he might go, and Joan at one point. So if this is something that sounds you're still interested, or if anybody else is, let Karen know. There is no charge for the conference itself. The one charge is that it is a night, so there'll be a night that you stay at a hotel. So, but if you can let Karen know so that we could put it on the agenda to be approved at the next meeting. Okay. And then the NISBA legislative breakfast. Again, this is another time to listen to have the legislators come. And usually Beverly Odekirk comes also. So it's a breakfast at the Crown Plaza, February 2nd. I guess the registration deadline is January 19th. Again, if you're interested in attending, let Karen know. And then the primary project findings. Roger, do you want to talk about that?
Sometimes we don't spend enough time just reminding ourselves of all the things that we do. And we have a project that's been going on for decades. We've been running for decades at the elementary school, the primary project. It's very much like a play therapy opportunity for kids, young kids. It's very hard to find counseling opportunities for the youngest children, but this is such a wonderful opportunity to be able to connect kids with adults in a setting that really support them. It's also evidence-based, it's data-driven. And for us, it's been very consistent over the years. And so I received over the holiday this the findings of a qualitative study on the primary project, which I think really just highlights and emphasizes the good that this program does. This feedback isn't specific about our program here. This is more broadly speaking, but we do follow their program very closely. We adhere to it. It's a budget item every year, and I think maybe it's good just to remember that behind some of our budget items, there's some really valuable programs that are really helpful for kids, and that's one.
Questions? And if we move to linking goals with agenda items, I think definitely the survey discussion and the work session would go under goal number 3, community outreach. The attendance at the Capitol Conference and the legislative breakfast would go into leadership. Primary project would be education. Any others?
The appointment of the
The
program.
program coordinator, yep, the international program coordinator, thanks.
I'm not sure if the last bullet under leadership, if that's what we're going into executive session about, which is evaluate, revise, and
Right.
implement.
That would be,
Which goal is
Sort
the
of.
appointment of the international coordinator?
that would be students first and foremost.
Thanks.
Right, thank you. The action item, we need to go down to donation acceptance. The proposed resolution reads, whereas Lake Placid Central School Board of Education policy number 6255, donations, gifts, and grants to the district allows for the superintendent of schools to accept on behalf of the board gifts, donations, and grants having a value of less than $1,500, whereas monies have been granted in the amount of $1,500 from Rotary International for the elementary school reading account. Now therefore be it resolved in accordance with policy 6255, the Board of Education hereby accepts the grants from Rotary International in the amount of $1,500. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
Yes.
Thanks, Dan. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Patty. Is there discussion?
Is this a new, have we received this before?
We have, yes. I'm not quite sure how long their literacy committee has been up and running. I'm thinking 5 or 6 years, something like that. And they've been running twice a year, they've been running the trivia nights.
Right.
And so that has become a major fundraiser for Rotary, and they are committed to using it to support literacy and literary programs in the community. It gives some of the money to our school district for that, and it goes right to that reading program, especially for the summertime, making books accessible to kids. And they've done some things for classroom resources as well over the years. They do some things for the literacy volunteers. Thank you. I'm sorry. Group as well. That's separate, but it's a great event that they run, and it's all for supporting community programs like ours.
Should we send them a thank you note?
I think we do, don't we? I think Laura does, but
I think
we
Laura
should from the
does.
board, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There are no any other questions, please vote. And, fill out one of our little thank you notes.
Do you want me to vote yes for you?
Yes, please.
Happen to have these handy dandy little thank you notes. Start down there. Oh, thank you. All right. Special education, we approved the packet, but are there any questions concerning the proposed placements to be addressed at the January 15th meeting? If not, then we'll go down to the proposed executive session. Is there a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment of certain personnel?
Oh.
Thanks, Rick. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Dan.
Was that Dan?
Dan.
Yes.
We're gonna vote. Okay. Is there any discussion? No, please vote.
Is it not coming up for you, Joan?
I got this. I had a lot
Oh,
back in.
thanks.
carries 5-4-0 against with 2 absent. That's at 7:29.